Well, they've been really busy. Yeah, I started this actually last year. I wasn't really.
Nothing decisive. I don't remember anything decisive.
You get a lot of weird.
Yeah, totally. I've been doing it for a little over a year. And it used to be with News and Views. I was like kind of busy Tuesday, and then kind of coming up to it, I'd maybe do a little research, so I was on top of things. And now I got to do that, and I got to have the other show ready on Thursday. So it's just like week after week after week, you know.
I used to do it like.
It's called 11th Hour Politics, and it's it's out of Salem. I was in Salem one time, and met the guy Ken at the Capitol in the media department, and he said I can't talk about it. I can't mix work with what I'm doing at home. But call me. I guess it'd be considered public employee. I think it's kind of a private organization that comes in there, so I don't know that it gets a state check. But at any rate, you know, just out of respect for them, you know. So, but anyway, we communicated, and he has a TV station. It's called KWBT. It's now out here. It was at the time it was more around Salem. No. Because it started in 2007. And kind of around there. Hey, all right, thank you.
How you been? Yeah.
Oh, that. Okay.
I didn't mean to give you a call, but it's just, you know, it's work. I'm still local, man. You're still. Wait, I have to dial. No, you just. Really? It's further than that. You mean I'm not on your speed dial? Come on. Come on.
Yeah, your name is probably in there.
Is it in there at all?
I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
No. See, this is what I'm saying.
No.
That's why you never call me.
So does being a chairman keep you really busy?
No, it's easy. You know, there's like, high point, and then it's just like a low activity. Come election year, then you're cool. Because then you have to interface with all that. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
But in the lag, well,
That's
organizing. Like right now, I'm doing this boat registration. But to all the events.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. For those of you who don't know me, I know a number of you in this crowd. My name is Mike Carew. I'm Rob Cornilles' Deputy Campaign Manager and Policy Director. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight for this opportunity to hear from both Rob and from Jim Wider, who I know most of you know quite well. I've had the opportunity to work with both Rob and Jim. I worked with Rob on his last campaign, and again on this campaign. And in between those two campaigns, I worked in Salem on redistricting this last session. First time in 100 years of the legislature redistricting the other side successfully without forced by Secretary of State interference. And I worked with Jim on that, and I'm sure he's completely pleased with the lines that I drew for him, but that's a matter for evening. So please, if you have not had an opportunity to do so yet, please fill out. We have index cards on the table. Please make sure to fill out some questions. Put them in the white basket or cubby or whatever we want to call it there. The fairest way we thought of being able to get to as many questions as possible rather than having the shout-out scenarios to have them on cards. Thank you so much for being interested enough to come out on a Saturday night and hear and be as engaged as you are. That's a wonderful sign. Our campaign, just briefly, is very, very excited. We've got just a couple more days left before the primary on Tuesday. Please, if you're not submitting your ballot, please do so now. Tell your friends to vote, your neighbors, make sure they get their ballots in as soon as possible. Rob can update you on sort of the status of the campaign. Today we had, Dan, I'd imagine, what, a couple thousand calls made from our phone banks. We need to continue that momentum right through primary day. And hopefully, if things work out on primary day the way we're hoping, right through the general election, which is January 31st. This is going to be a very odd campaign. We're going to be running through the holidays, so all the help that we can get from you on the ground, talking to your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, as well as coming in and volunteering your time, your money, if you can afford that as well, is greatly appreciated. You're not here to listen to me, so without further ado, I'd love to introduce first Representative Jim Widener. I'd like to thank everyone
everybody for coming. I know pretty much everybody here, and I'm glad to see that you notice I'm wearing Democrat blue and Liz is wearing Republican red up here in front. So we're switch hitters sometimes. But a lot of you guys, I mean, we see each other all the time, especially with the races that I've had and everything. We've had to do a lot of town halls, a lot of debates. So know all of you, appreciate all of you for coming and turning out for these events. I'm a little disappointed that we also have a congressional district candidate here tonight for CD1 and we have such a small turnout. I mean, that's a shame. We have Occupy Portland going, all these other events going, and nobody's here to really drill in and ask questions. Because this is where the business gets done. This is where I learn what people are thinking and what goes on in our communities, what our community wants, what our community sees. And I get to hear people's voices. And tonight we have a small turnout with a congressional district candidate here and someone who just came out of a legislative session, 2 of them, and I could be drilled with questions as well. And I'm here ready and willing to take them all. I'm going to talk about last session just here at the state to give you an idea. Many of you know we had a big changing of a guard at the state. It went from a supermajority on the Democratic side to a tied House, first time in Oregon history. We had a changing in leadership and speakers. Bruce Hanna, Arnie Roblin did a masterful job in handling things because you have 60 people with 60 different opinions on issues and the way things should get done. We were very fortunate. We passed 6 pieces of legislation out of our office. All the stuff that I ran was very common sense, straightforward. I went out and seeked Democrats from the other side of the aisle that I was friends with. Val Hoyle co-sponsored a few pieces of legislation with me. Jefferson Smith, Brad Witt, trying to think who else. There was just so many that we reached out and we worked across the aisle. And these are people that actually cared about wanting to do the right thing for Oregon. We knew where we agreed and where we disagreed. We didn't go to the issues where we disagreed, or we would go to those and we would debate them and we would talk about them, and nobody took anything personal and we didn't walk away angry with each other. To be honest with you, I consider Val Hoyle a close and personal friend of mine, and I will say that wherever I go. Jefferson Smith, same thing, and we know we disagree on certain issues, and there's issues where we agree and we work on. So, and when we have an issue we disagree, we can sit down and debate it and steer it to the direction that we want it to go and get things done, and we did that. One of them, and a lot of people might think this is odd, but I'll just talk about healthcare real quick. We had healthcare transformation. I was the one no vote on the floor for it, but it got steered from implementing this to, hey, let's look at it and implement a business plan to make sure it's going to work, because what we're doing is setting up CCOs and MCOs locally, but they're privately owned, and we're going to steer money to these to distribute the funds to the people. So basically the state's kind of putting somebody in the middle to sort of run a buffer for them for implementing or dispensing funds. Well, we're actually increasing overhead of about 30% by putting more people in the middle rather than distributing the funds directly. The direction I want to see us go with transformation is more of a debit type card, like we have the Oregon Trail card, we have an Oregon Health card. You give people, you get 1 emergency room visit a year, and we're going to give you 3 doctor visits a year, or whatever it is. You use those, you use them up, you come back, well now we'll refill your card, but you're going to pay a $75 deductible the next time you have to go to the emergency room. So now we're making the patient accountable for their health care, so they just don't go to the emergency room for everything, because we need to drive the cost of health care down, and we're not doing anything to really drive those costs down. So I've made a lot of headway there. Val was very interested in it, and she's working it very hard on the Democratic side. Myself and some other guys on the Republican side are kind of pushing the same concept. I think it will be a big change. I'm a little bit nervous on the CCOs because there's some people with very large amounts of money trying to make sure that these things pass and get them in place, because they profit tremendously from these CCOs. So, and for me, it's not about right or wrong. It's about doing the right thing where we can deliver the best outcomes with the money that we have, because we have X dollars to spend. So we need to make people accountable, or patients accountable, for the health care that they use. So upcoming in this next legislative session, one of the bills that I'll be introducing, we tried to do it last time and ran into some hiccups with some agencies, but making the state go out to bid for generic prescription drugs. So that's something that we don't do, and it's something that we need to look at and address, is the bidding of generic prescription drugs, because we could save a lot of money. So preliminary savings, we're hopefully we'll have those numbers back this week, but it's going to be great. I mean, Tom Burns, he's kind of waffling around. He doesn't want to give us the numbers, but he's like, oh yeah, this is going to save a lot. And he's trying to tie other things in. I said, no, let's keep it clean and simple so it passes and everybody can see it. Once you start putting too many things in a bill, that's when we run into the problems that we do. So, and that's the best way to address health care, is attacking these one little issue at a time. Another bill that we'll be doing is actually it's kind of a property rights bill. And right now we have people that are looking at foreclosures on their homes because of financial reasons. Some people, elderly people, that are looking at foreclosures because of taxes. Okay? Property taxes are getting very, very high, and it's tough for someone on Social Security to pay their property taxes. And right now, the way things are set up, they auction it off for the taxes that are owed. So if you owe $50,000 in property taxes, the state just comes in, auctions your property for $50,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that. They're going to go out to bid and auction it off, and all of a sudden it goes for $200,000. State takes $50,000. The person who owned the place gets $150,000. So that way you don't have people sitting watching the sidelines to basically profit off of someone else's misery and loss, because the person's already down. We don't need to kick him anymore or step on him anymore. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob, and I'm going to tell you why I agreed to do this with Rob. Rob called me when he first decided to run, and he goes, Jim, I'd like you to endorse me in this race. And I endorsed Rob the first time, and I said, you know, Rob, it wouldn't be fair for me to endorse you right now because I don't know who you're running against. I haven't talked to anybody you're running against. So I want to know all the candidates that are out there this time in this primary. And about 3 weeks, I'd say closer to 4 weeks went by. I've heard from no other candidate. Not one of them had called me. Rob calls me back. I'm actually on a work trip, and I was in the hotel room, and we chat for a little bit, and he goes, well, I go, Rob, I don't even know who's running against you. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. I don't know who's running against you because they've never called me, I've never talked to them. And I went ahead and told him I would endorse him, and I'll tell you why I endorsed Rob. Rob is a businessman. He gets it. He's built an organization. He has the best run campaign out of anybody on the Republican side. He works, he's out there getting it done, and he's running a better campaign than anybody on the other side as well. So I know the other candidates that he's running against. And I'll tell you, one of them I'm actually friends with, Brad Witt. I like Brad Witt. Brad and I get along. He's on the coast and everything, but Brad and I disagree on quite a few political issues. Rob and I might find we disagree on a few political issues, but I know his core principle and base is where mine is. So with that, I chose to endorse Rob because Rob's a normal guy like every one of us who puts his pants on one leg at a time, and he wants to go back to Washington and do the right thing and stop the crony capitalism that goes on both sides. I mean, we see it happen over and over again. Doesn't matter who gets into office, it's basically who gets paid when who gets into office, and that's the kind of stuff that has to end. And I think that's kind of what Occupy Portland was wanting to get at, and it's what the Tea Party was wanting to get after. So those are one of the things that they have in common, yet you get people who go in and try to take over these organizations and steer them into something different than what they are. People just want legislators doing the right thing. And I truly believe that Rob wants to go there and do the right thing. With that, I'd like to introduce Rob Cornilles to you.
some familiar faces and some people I'm meeting perhaps for the first time. I want to also let you know, if you're looking for a place to end your evening, I recommend Zippy's in Yamhill. I just came from there. We had dinner there. It was great. Tonight we started we started the day today in Tualatin. Then we went to Beaverton. Then we went to Forest Grove. And so on our way from Forest Grove to here, we stopped in Yamhill. And so it's a pleasure to end the week here with you all tonight in McMinnville. In fact, I must tell you that I believe, I have to look over to Mike, I believe this is our last public forum that we're having until primary night next Tuesday. So I'd like to think we're ending it on a real high note in my home county. I say my home county because some of you know that I was born in Portland 47 years ago. I was raised in Washington County, and then when I was high school age, a freshman, our family moved to Yamhill County. So I actually grew up a Tiger, and I hope you Grizzlies are okay with that, because that's where I met my wife, was in Newburgh, when we went to high school together. And hopefully you'll grab a little brochure tonight and read a little bit more about our family. But my wife Allison and I have been married 25.5 years, and we have 3 boys, 2 in college, and one still in high school. All of our kids have gone through the Tiger Tualatin public school system. I want to just give you a little bit of background on me. You don't know, perhaps those of you I'm meeting for the first time tonight, you don't know much about me because I've never been elected to anything. Except I think back in high school I was elected to something. And maybe the Homeowners Association. I think I was Secretary Treasurer one year. But that's, I had never had aspirations to run for office. I had aspirations to basically raise a good family, serve in my community, and start a business. Let me tell you a little bit about serving in the community. We've lived in Tualatin since 1993, and we've raised our boys there. And in my spare time, my wife likes to point out that my hobbies don't really exist. Unless you count running, I do like to run. Maybe some of you have seen that on television lately. You may not be able to tell, but I do like to run. And then we also, when I'm not doing that, I like to volunteer in several organizations here in the area. One of my favorites is Special Olympics at work, and I'm on the board for Special Olympics. I also serve on the board of Virginia Garcia Memorial Foundation. They have a clinic right here in McMinnville, as you know. I serve on the board of the Oregon League of Minority Voters, which is a fairly new organization, and it's basically to give minorities in our communities more opportunities for education and career growth. I also serve on the board for the National Advisory Board, I should say, for an organization called Positive Coaching Alliance. And it's a place where we try to encourage parents and youth athletic coaches and youth athletic administrators to treat sports not only as a place where you go to win, but a place where you go to learn to respect others. So I'm very proud of my association with that organization, which is actually based in California. I'm also on the Hillsborough, the International Air Show. I'm on that board too. So you can see I try to get involved in a variety of ways in my community and give back, as they say. Before I go further, I just want to make sure a couple of people have come in since we began. If you have a question, I see you're holding the basket. If you have a question, Mike is taking one last pass around, and you're welcome to throw a question either for me or Jim into the basket, so we can include as many as possible. As I said, I think you're covered there, Mike. Thank you. I think it'd be important for me to also tell you a little bit about the business that we started, my wife and I, 16 years ago. It was actually out of a spare bedroom in our home in Tualatin, and dipping into our savings account, we decided that I wanted to engage in a particular line of work, which is within the sports industry. Now, you may not tell by the looks of me, but I actually started my professional career in sports more than 20 years ago. I was an offensive lineman for the New York Jets. Just want to see if you're awake, sir. Okay, you are awake. That's the only fib I'll tell tonight, I promise. No, actually, many years ago, I worked in Los Angeles when we were early in our married life. I worked for the Los Angeles Clippers basketball team. And I was in the sales, marketing, and service department. My job was to bring people into the building and keep them there. Not by force. We didn't lock the doors, but rather we wanted to make sure that when they came, they had a positive experience that led to great results for their families, for their company, for the nonprofit organization, and all the different reasons that people may go to a sporting event, even if they don't even like the team. And so we engage in various methods or strategies to attract people to our band team in a tough place in South Central Los Angeles. And then through our strategies, we discovered that people were coming back frequently. So much so that we were selling out games. And that's kind of the measurement of success in the sports business. Not by how many banners are hanging from the ceiling, but how many games are selling out. And then the NBA took note and they asked if I could participate in working with some other teams. And then after doing this for a couple of years, I finally figured, hey, there's a business in this. And so I began this company called GameFace. And since then, we have, through about 60 people that we've employed in this time, we've worked with about 400 sports organizations, including Oregon State University, for those of you who are Beavers fans, including the Trailblazers, including the Bolton Timbers, but about 397 other clients.